Enhanced interrogation techniques were primarily employed by the CIA and Defense Intelligence Agency after 9/11. The inception of these techniques can be traced back to the immediate aftermath of the history-defying event, when the Bush administration, grappling with the management of prisoners of war and suspected terrorists, decided to treat these attacks as acts of war.
The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible.
This led to a significant departure from conventional interrogation practices. President George W. Bush, on September 17, 2001, signed a directive authorizing the CIA to secretly imprison and interrogate detainees.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
A program that would last until 2009. These methods, often described as a form of torture, included waterboarding, sleep deprivation, solitary confinement, and physical abuse. The legality and ethical implications of these practices have been extensively debated. In July 2014, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that enhanced interrogation equated to torture, mandating Poland to pay restitution to men tortured at a CIA black site there. I've made another video about these black sites. The techniques, officially sanctioned under the guise of extracting vital intelligence from high-value detainees, sparked a broad spectrum of responses. Proponents argued they were essential for national security, while critics contended they were ineffective and morally responsible, violating both U.S. and international law. The Senate Intelligence Committee's report in December 2014 revealed the extent and nature of these practices, intensifying the debate on the use and effectiveness of enhanced interrogation techniques. So what interrogation methods did the CIA use exactly? The first one is one of the most known, waterboarding. It is a controversial interrogation method, involves restraining a person on their back and pouring water over their face, often with a cloth covering the nose and mouth. This technique creates a sensation of drowning, inducing panic and terror. Historically, it has been favored for leaving no physical marks, while causing extreme psychological distress. The method has been variously described as forcing water inhalation or preventing water from entering the lungs, but consistently simulates asphyxiation. The psychological impact of waterboarding is profound, including immediate effects like panic attacks and disorientation, and long-term consequences such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Studies suggest that the cumulative and unpredictable nature of such coercive techniques significantly exacerbates their psychological impact. The second is sleep deprivation, also used as an interrogation technique, involves preventing an individual from achieving adequate sleep. This can be achieved through various methods, including prolonged exposure to light, noise, or physical discomfort. Initially, victims experience fatigue, irritability, and concentration difficulties. As deprivation continues, more severe symptoms manifest, including disorientation, speech difficulties, poor judgment, lowered body temperature, increased appetite, and severe lethargy. Long-term effects are even more alarming. Prolonged sleep deprivation can lead to hallucinations, a break with reality, cognitive impairments like memory loss, and a total collapse of mental functions. In extreme cases, it can cause irreversible physical and neurological damage, including brain cell death and reduced gray matter volume. The cumulative nature of sleep deprivation means its effects intensify over time, significantly impacting both mental and physical health. We now move on to some more sinister techniques. Do note that although some of these techniques sound somewhat harmless, the effects on the human body are unbearable. The third one is confinement in large and small boxes. In this method, detainees are placed in extremely confined spaces for extended periods. The sizes of these boxes vary, with some so small that the detainee cannot stand or sit comfortably, effectively forcing them into a cramped position. This method is used to induce psychological distress, claustrophobia, and a sense of complete isolation. Psychologically prolonged confinement in such conditions can lead to severe mental health issues, including anxiety, panic attacks, and a sense of disconnection from reality. The extreme sensory deprivation and physical discomfort experienced can also result in long-term psychological trauma, similar to the effects of solitary confinement, leading to conditions like PTSD and other stress-related disorders. This method's effectiveness in extracting reliable information is highly questionable, with the severe psychological impact raising significant ethical concerns. The fourth method is short shackling. It is a form of restraint where the detainee is bound, typically by the hands, to an eye bolt on the floor, limiting movement to a small radius. This often forces the individual into a fetal or squatting position for extended periods. The use of short shackling has been reported in various instances during the War on Terror. Some of the prisoners were subjected to this technique along with exposure to loud music, strobe lights, and extreme temperatures, leading to severe physical and psychological distress. Such conditions have been observed to cause flesh wounds and significant psychological trauma, including stress and potential long-term mental health issues. Psychologically, short shackling induces a sense of helplessness and severe mental strain. The physical discomfort combined with sensory overstimulation and environmental stressors can lead to conditions like PTSD, anxiety, and depression. This technique, often used in conjunction with other forms of torture or ill treatment, significantly exacerbates its psychological impact. The cumulative effect of prolonged exposure to such treatment and the unpredictability associated with it contribute to severe mental health issues that can persist long after the detainee is released. You might find this disgusting when you hear it, but it was actually part of their toolbox. Rectal feeding. This one is a highly controversial and ethically questionable practice. This technique involves the forceful insertion of nutrient mixtures into the rectum, purportedly as an alternative method of nourishing detainees who refuse food. However, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report stated that rectal hydration or feeding was conducted without medical necessity and was used to control or punish detainees. The psychological and physical ramifications of this practice are severe. It has been characterized as a form of medicalized rape, causing long-lasting trauma and distress. Victims can suffer from chronic hemorrhoids, anal fissures, symptomatic rectal prolapse, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and difficulty with trust and relationships. The use of rectal feeding raises serious legal and ethical issues, considering its invasive nature and the profound physical and psychological harm it inflicts. The sixth one is sound torture, a method of psychological torment. Involves the use of loud and often culturally offensive music to undermine the mental state of detainees. This technique has been employed in various conflicts, including the Iraqi War, where it was combined with other forms of no-touch torture like sleep deprivation. The continuous exposure to high-decibel music, sometimes reaching upwards of 79 decibels, is intended to cause significant psychological discomfort and disorientation. For instance, during the Iraqi War, music from artists like Metallica and Barney the Purple Dinosaur was used to offend and disorient prisoners. While considered by some as more humane than physical methods, sound torture can have severe and lasting psychological effects, such as trauma, anxiety, and PTSD. The method is controversial and has faced widespread criticism from human rights activists for violating basic human rights. The CIA employed a complex web of misinformation and secrecy in its use of enhanced interrogation techniques. Key to maintaining this secrecy was the compartmentalization of information within the agency itself, ensuring that many within the CIA were unaware of the full extent or nature of the interrogation practices. This internal opacity was mirrored in the CIA's external communications. Misleading briefings to congressional leaders and inaccurate media disclosures were part of a broader strategy to manage public perception and political fallout. All the reports suggest that the CIA presented these techniques as essential and effective, despite internal doubts about their efficacy and legality. The initial unraveling began with investigative journalism, followed by pressure from human rights organizations and leaks from within the government itself. This crescendo of revelations peaked with the release of the Senate Intelligence Committee's report in December 2014, which detailed the extent and nature of the practices employed.
Naked, diapered, physically struck, and put in various painful stress positions for long periods of time. They were deprived of sleep for days.
The report, A comprehensive investigation based on classified CIA documents, interviews, and other sources contradicted the CIA's public narrative. It revealed not only the brutal nature of the techniques used, but also the inefficacy of these methods in producing reliable intelligence. The aftermath of this exposure was significant. It spurred intense national and international debate about the ethics and legality of the United States' counterterrorism strategies. It also led to calls for accountability and legal reforms to prevent future use of such methods, underscoring a collective reckoning with a controversial chapter in American intelligence history. If you like what we're doing here, consider subscribing to never miss a new video.